Selected 81st overall in the third round, Hunter Long came as a surprise when selected in the 2021 NFL Draft to many Dolphin fans, especially with fan favorite Quinn Miners remaining on the board. This pick also had many eyebrows raised as it's a high investment in a position the Miami Dolphins seem to be set at in a lot of our eyes. Long had an impressive career at Boston College and was a reliable, dependable target for the Eagles. Long is a far more rounded out and overall polished prospect than what Mike Gesicki was when he was drafted out of Penn State by the Miami Dolphins. He's quite a good route runner and displayed a pretty expansive route tree during his time at Boston College, creating separation with his body twitch and clean cuts out of his breaks. His catch radius doesn't get talked about either and doesn't get talked about enough in general, but he's displayed the ability to catch poorly thrown balls that at times look like they were well beyond his reach because as watching his all-22 footage, the one thing that constantly leaps out is porous quarterback play. He's very capable at the catch point too. Knows how to use his long 6'5", 253-pound frame to go up and beat defenders by high pointing the football. He's also got very sure hands, only dropping 5 passes during his time at Boston College. If the ball is in his area or radius, he's grabbing that football and he's coming down with it. Long also displays a crazy wingspan that helps with his radius at 83 inches. I think he's an underrated athlete, to be honest. A 4.63 40, a 4.42 short shuttle, a 7.41 3-cone, which is probably his worst measurement, a 10-foot 2-inch broad jump, and a 32.5-inch vertical. Yes, those are not Kyle Pitts numbers or measurements, especially that underwhelming 3-cone, like I mentioned. But if you were to go by his RAS, he ranked 132nd out of 927 tight ends measured since 1987. He's also shown the ability when he gets in open space that he can get away from defenders, giving him a good amount of yards after the catch, but the majority of the time he comes off as a more of a chain mover. He knows where they are and he'll get the ball there. He's not an every down home run threat by any means. He isn't quite the contested catch machine that Gesicki is. He can make them, but sometimes he doesn't come down with the football because he clearly hears defenders' footsteps. But this isn't a huge concern because confidence in your ability to catch the football can change that type of flaw, especially at the next level. He's very effective against zone, showing off a high football aptitude to find the soft areas and sit in them for a completion to make defenders pay. He also shows a knack for being in the right spot when breaking off of his routes, when plays break down and the quarterbacks have to improvise, which is a great ability to possess as a receiver that bails his quarterback out of sticky situations, gains a quarterback's trust and confidence. As a blocker, Hunter Long is not only very willing and able to do the dirty work, he's also pretty effective at it. He can chip or show off his good fundamentals and technique by squaring up and driving defenders off the edge to open up lanes by stringing them out. He's just as effective in run blocking as he is when he's being used in pass pro and is arguably the best blocking tight end of the 2021 draft class, with maybe only Pat Freiermuth being in the same tier. This will really help him to see more downs and gain more experience early on in his career, as the more on-field reps young players can have, the more likely they are to develop quicker than those who play sporadically. And I wouldn't be surprised if he winds up as a 3-down tight end, given his receiving ability blended with his blocking prowess. He's also shown good balance and a strong lower half, which allows him to handle power rushes if they come his way, and he isn't an easy task to merely move aside. This also allows him to be positional versatile, as he has no problem lining up in line, in the slot as previously mentioned, or even outside where he's seen a limited amount of reps. Shows no issue with sealing off opposing defenders and shows the competitive nature you need to finish reps off while never taking a snap off, always giving it 110%. Now, do not get me wrong. Hunter Long is by no means the perfect prospect. There is no perfect prospect. like any rookie, he still has some things that he's going to need to clean up at the next level. But the positive thing is there isn't a lot. He can sometimes be inconsistent catching with his body, and this is where some of his drops can come from when you watch him on tape. Like I said earlier, too, he isn't the most reliable with contested catches, and well, sometimes a lot of traffic around the ball can lead to bad drops as well. As good of a route runner as he is, he does sometimes show instances where he can start to round them off just a tad. So being consistent and making sure every cut is sharp is going to be vital for him at the next level, considering he isn't the most speedy guy and relies on his wits and route running ability to create the majority of the separation he gains. The lack of speed, too, can show up with his inability at times to produce big gains after the catch. He can do it when he catches the ball in open space, but at the next level, you're going to have to make guys miss or run past them more often than not because bodies will be around the ball. He could also stand to work on his release off the line of scrimmage, as he isn't that explosive off of it when lined up in the slot or outside, so crispening his footwork off of the line of scrimmage will be imperative to his success. It's obvious why the Miami Dolphins drafted Hunter Long. He fits perfectly with a team that runs a ton of 12-man personnel, as Boston College ran a ton of 12-man personnel specifically in 2019, especially considering the Dolphins run it on 28% of their offensive snaps. A lot of people like to say the Dolphins are doing things the Patriot way. Well, we all saw what they did with the pairing of Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski. Hernandez was a playmaker and a below-average blocker, while Gronk was the more well-rounded of the two, and Gesicki and Long as a duo can give you basically the poor man's version of that. I don't see the 12-man personnel frequency dipping this year, especially if Gesicki does stick around long-term, because it's one of, if not the hardest personnel grouping to defend in the NFL, as seen by Bill Belichick signing Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith to return the Patriots to that style. Do I think Hunter Long's arrival signals the end of Gesicki here long-term and puts the writing on the wall? No, not right away, but you have to be wary of the situation, because if Long excels at the next level and gives you a more rounded-out option at the position, it's definitely going to put leverage in the hands of the Miami Dolphins and not in the hands of Mike Gesicki and his agent. I do think they would franchise tag him, or at worst transition tag Mike Gesicki at the end of the season if it's not used elsewhere, with the franchise tag coming in at $11.3 million and the transition tag coming in at about $9.6 million. And then they'd play it out for at least another year if the two find success together, which I do think they will. Overall, now that I've had time to digest the pick, I really do like it and realize that Long puts pressure on that whole tight end room, not just Gesicki, to get better this year and step their game up even further. I do think he may affect Durham Smythe's long-term future with the Dolphins, especially if Gesicki is in the future plans. When you step back and look at why they drafted Hunter Long, it just makes sense. He's the best route runner in our tight end room, a dependable run and pass blocker, has a very high football IQ, and if Gesicki's demands are too rich for this team, he's your safety net, so you're not left with Smythe, Shaheen, Ethan Carter, and developmental guys like Chris Myrick and Jabri Blount as your options. I, for one, want them to keep Gesicki around, because if he does take a step forward with his blocking, I believe him and Hunter Long can turn into one of the best tight end duos in the entire NFL. And who better to utilize him in 12-man personnel than Brian Flores, the man who saw what a nightmare Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski were firsthand for opposing defensive coordinators. Drafted at 81, Hunter Long has the ability and the tools to become yet another potential steal for the Miami Dolphins in the 2021 NFL Draft when we look back on it in 5 years. And like I said, when you dive into his tape, you'll know, even with poor quarterback play, somehow, some way, Hunter Long kept the chains consistently moving, which you like to see. I mean, look at that catch he just made in bracketed coverage. Phenomenal stuff. I really do like this kid. I really do think he is going to be our long-term option at the position, just because of not only the fact of his ability, but he's on a cheap contract for the next 4 years. So that's something you have to look at. And the great thing about him this past season at Boston College, A.J. Dillon was the focal point in 2019, and he was now gone this year. What happened this year was they put the onus on Hunter Long being the main point of focus for their offense. And the guy delivered. I mean, we're talking about he opens up the season with 25 catches over the span of 3 games. And, you look at what he did in the first 4 games, too. He put up 93 yards and a touchdown against Duke. He put up 81 yards and a touchdown against Texas State. He put up 96 yards against North Carolina. He put up 93 yards against Pittsburgh. The guy just balled out. And then when they faced Virginia in the last game of the season, he had 109 yards on 8 catches and a touchdown. He consistently got better every year. I mean, there's not much you can say about Hunter Long except when he was depended on this year in the Boston College offense, the man showed up and the man delivered. And now it'll be interesting to see how things pan out when he's depended upon a little bit more at the next level in the Miami Dolphins offense, which I think he will be right out of the gate. I do see him potentially seeing a lot more snaps in 12-man personnel than what Gesicki will see. And that's just because if you put him with either Smythe or Shaheen, you have to be wary of both sides and because the ball can be ran to either or, yet the ability Hunter Long offers you as a pass catcher and a route runner far exceeds what Durham Smythe and Adam Shaheen will be able to offer you as pass catchers.